Wacha nitakutumia link just now as soon as it registers. Yes, we own. Let me get the link. Hey, so how have you been, brother? How have you been? Huko Nairobi kukwaje? Kuna baridi ama kuna nini? You know,
it was
I've been coming to
ilikuwa a
Kanairo.
bit cold leo.
Uh-huh.
Hii wiki pia mchana it was a bit heated, but ikaribia 4 hivi 4ish. You get summer uchili.
Yes.
But it is what it is. We try our best. We try our best
that
to
time
keep.
Of the year.
We try our best to keep the complaints on the down low. Because complaints are quite addictive once you start.
Yeah, you know, I've been seeing there's a lot of complaints, or rather a lot of people talking about this finance bill, that. I don't know, we'll have to see. I've seen a poster going around saying, let's occupy Parliament on Tuesday. I think that's when they'll be debating the bill at around 2:30. So it seems now there's I've seen even some of the Twitter guys saying, I'll be there. So maybe this
in form of
person. See, that's the thing. See your tweets, because you know that has been the thing, because people have just been complaining, and normally the sound is usually so loud on Twitter, on social media, but no substantive effort is being really done to push back on the government. And I don't know if this is a turning point. It seems to be, because I've seen some fairly prominent Twitter personalities saying they'll be there. I mean, these are not the ordinary people that you see in maandamanos, in demonstrations. They'll probably be in their cushy, nice homes or offices, tweeting away. But this time around, they seem like, I'll be there. I've seen some saying I'll be there, but we'll wait and see if they'll follow through on their word. But that seems to.
What will their presence do to hamper the bill from being passed?
I think it's just to register. I don't know what they would do when they say they'll occupy. Would they block the MPs from gaining access to the Parliament? Will their clamoring outside influence the MPs to swing one way or the other? It's a form of picketing, but how effective it will be, I think time will tell.
There's something they passed some time back. It was that issue. Nowadays, you can't impeach an MP.
You cannot, eh? You have to wait until the 5 years. You know, I just told a friend actually yesterday in the evening. It occurred to me, or rather, I came to the realization that the people who architect this thing we call democracy knew very well how to design it. They designed a system which has the semblance of, you know, you've got you as the ordinary person, you get your voice heard. And they've created mechanisms that seem to show that. But substantively, you realize you actually have no control at all. So the democracy, one of the key elements of it is, one, regular elections. Two, the idea of representative, where you have an MP representing you. All these mechanisms that they have put in place, all these markers that define what they call democracy.
Is there anything like regular performance feedback? Like, you see, you may have a 5-year contract, but based on your performance, like we normally would talk of in a good company, talk of a quarterly performance review, so that you don't get all of a sudden you get bad outcomes. You can see your trends, then you can say, oh, listen, you can talk of of 1 to 5 in terms of performance. And if you are consistently hitting below 2.5, we'll consider terminating your contract with the necessary dues, because there has to be a back door out of something.
But
So
how easy is that practical? You see, that's the thing. The Constitution also provides for impeaching a president. I mean, what they do is they put these markers and say, oh, okay, after 5 years, that guy will be up for the vote. And that will be the time then to put him to the test. Has he been performing or not? Will you keep him or will you pick someone else? I think real practice has shown that many a times, particularly because if that person is in power, then he has all the tools at his disposal to ensure that he protects the power that he has. So it becomes harder. In
yeah, because he's
practice,
no longer. It is they call him servant of the people, but he's a servant apparently. But
exactly. And that's what I
in reality, it's more like a company chairman. That
that's
the
it.
only way he can live is on his own accord.
I think that's what democracy is. It gives the face of something, but it's actually the total opposite of what it says it is. And I
Because
think,
if it allows,
and it's not a preserve of only a certain section. Maybe it's much the effects and the impact of that is much more prevalent in Africa and other places, particularly where we borrowed this, where this is like a process that has been sort of imposed on us. But even in the places where it says it's originated, you can already see the signs that many a times that so-called democracy does not work for the benefit of the wider population it says to serve. It's all working for the benefit of very few. So all these elections, the aspect of representative, then the aspect of you've got free free freedom to picket, to protest. All these things we call protesting and picketing and all these things. What do they really yield? In many instances, very little, very little.
Sharif Mustafa, karibu sana. So the thing is this: when they talk of democracy, I don't know, for the people, by the people. Now, first off, in the constitution, which I can say I've not gone through it thoroughly to any extent, but are there any markers like these are the percentage figures for health? These are the percentage figures required to be maintained for malaria, cholera, whatnot. When it comes to road safety, these are the numbers that have to be maintained. Like we don't expect loss of lives past this number per year. So, are there such things? You know, for a job to be performed effectively, the numbers must be there. Like if you're a salesman, you need numbers. Uh, for me, my background in water treatment, they used to say that they used to tell us no, they used to, in fact, zero product failures due to water quality. In fact, my former workplace before I'm here, I came to this place, was 4 years, zero product failures.
Wow.
Absolute zero product failure due to water related issues. So a job that has no figures related to it, it creates ambiguity. There has to be slots. Okay, slot number one, road safety. This number, the number of deaths per year should not cross this threshold. Number two, injuries, permanent injuries, because there's death where I've lost someone, then there's permanent injury. This individual cannot serve his country. The country is not serving him, keeping him well, meaning he cannot perform. He may be able to perform under certain conditions, but then again, those conditions cannot be. Let's say this man used to be a long distance driver carrying precious goods. Now he can't do that. He's doing something else, but obviously his output has gone low. So things like that. When it comes to malaria, How much, number one, threshold of deaths to malaria should be this figure. Number two, malaria infection, because when you are sick, that means that is downtime, you are not working, and you are spending medication on you. When things like robberies and whatnot, how many reported robberies per year? How many murders? So if we have these figures, now we can point out, oh, hii threshold umepitisha, hapa umepitisha. Things like service delivery turnaround. This should be the constitution. If I walk into a government facility with all my requirements for that service, turnaround should be this amount of. Let's say I'm karibu sana Innocent Sunday. When you are, let's say you are going to a certain service, and what is the expected turnaround time, regardless of who is on the queue? 30 minutes, 25 minutes. So if you are there beyond 30 minutes, you are questioned, because government services operate with weekdays. On a weekday, you should be doing something else, correct? But you are there. You are operating on your downtime is also your uptime, useful time is being wasted on a queue. So these are things that should be on the constitution, so that you are able to correctly. It's like I don't know how they do it. My high school report form, see, there's a spot for every subject, and they are marked.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
in the constitution, do we have that?
I mean, yeah, maybe that's a question we need in the constitution. Does it allow setting those quantitative and qualitative
Yes.
measurements that every year they'll be measured? I mean, I'm sure they put some of this in their so-called manifestos. But those manifestos, as soon as they
It's in the
get into
constitution.
power, they are thrown down the drain.
It should be in the constitution.
But
such that, you see,
I think we are
it is
yet-
not in the constitution. If let's say you say that in this curriculum we are not going to set a pass mark. So let's say term 1, let's say term 3, this subject I scored 30%. Then they say 30%, this is a total failure. But oh, listen, look. In this term 3, I'm at 30%. Remember, term 2, I was at 18%. Term 1, I scored 5%. So, gentlemen, there's a very massive increment in my performance. Unaweza jitetea hivyo, but you are still, that is E. The moment you don't set stipulations, it becomes an open-ended situation. It's like a goal post ambao haina ona that goal, those sticks are not stuck, it's movable. So when Ronaldo shoots a ball at you, you just close it, mpira inaenda kando, then you open it. So it's like, that is it called an amoeba, haina form, haina shape, there's no pass mark. Because when there's no pass mark, when there's a pass mark, you can tell between massive success, moderate success, what you call, you are moving on the line up or borderline. Then there's slight failure up to 48, 49. Then there's total failure, you're at 2%, 10%. Unless
yeah, but even Brian, I think the questions we should ask, because even there are some constitutional safeguards that are there, but how well are they being enforced? Real substantively. So what I'm probably asking myself is this, and this is sort of now getting a bird's eye view at our current system of governance. Why is it that it seems, one, to reward personalities that really don't seem to have the benefit, to have sort of the interests of the wider country at heart? Why is it that we seem to elect and gravitate to those kind of personalities? Because these people are voted by us, even if they cheat and circumvent the system, to a larger degree, there's a if you probably pose the country to a larger degree, there's a liking to them. Why is it that the system never seems to produce benefits that are for the wider masses? Because the system, in and of itself, how it is literally constructed and architected. The current system we are living in, we are actually living perfectly in order of how that system was crafted. We will always talk of, yeah, we've got all these democratic gains that we have elections every 5 or so years, that our president has a 10-year term, that we've got representations for every part of the country, that we've devolved the government to now counties, that we've got all these things. But if you look at it, the country is actually in some sense regressing instead of progressing. These things sound so good, but in and of themselves, the way they have been built and what they should produce, they are producing exactly what they were intended. But that sort of message, that how would I put it? The way they are marketed is the exact opposite of what they deliver. And I think for me, is let's think completely out of the box. Let's get ourselves out of that situation altogether and start thinking, okay, this is what we want. How do we achieve this? And why is it that the system that we've had, even though it says it does this, it actually produces the opposite? What can we do? What systems and orders of organization can we put in place that will always ensure, one, we are always bringing to the fore the right people that have the right leadership, that do things that matter, that we can measure and hold them accountable. We know there's a human element where power corrupts. So how do we ensure that that power is tamed, that somebody does not go, and we can easily be able to capture it at a very early stage instead of waiting for a 5 or a 10-year period, ensuring that we still have the total power that we are said to have. They'll say the power really rests in people, but none of that is true. None of that power really rests with us. Making change, if we have to, I don't know. It's beyond me at this point. But these are the questions I'm battling with in my mind.
But who said that the system is meant to be positive for the wider community?
That's how it is marketed. That's
But it does not.
a messaging.
If let's say I market a vehicle, that this vehicle is supposed to move at 150 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
There's a very nice, elaborate looking document with those leather bound casing and high tech, those high quality pages and laser printing and whatnot. The brochures look fantastic, but the vehicle can hardly get to 70 kph. That tells you what has been documented is not really what is going on. So the
and
system,
we measure everything, but this is the one thing that measuring is arbitrary. Measuring is, if it is a car, we know. If we put a Mercedes Benz in this car, if it is said to be this, you can look at the specification and you can test to
Yes.
confirm. But politics is just the one thing that we live to.
It's like a heavy commercial vehicle. They'll tell you this is the loading capacity. Load namna, this is going to behave. Imagine we're selling you a lorry. They say this lorry is a very good lorry, and it is meant to serve you. One of the best. The people who made this truck have the best interests in your business. They are very kind-hearted individuals, and they made this with the goal of making your business better. I don't know flowery language, but there are no numerical stipulations. So utakata kununua hiyo gari. You won't accept to buy such a vehicle. When you ask, what is the engine cc? Don't worry about the engine cc. The thing is that the vehicle has been made with you in mind.
Exactly.
So the constitution is very made for those who have gone. It's very flowery, it's very good, but as long as there are no numerical markers to show what is going on, ni mdomo mtamu tu, because let's say like there was a time they recorded 1,100 deaths in a month through accidents. In another place, some people would have been resigned, others even jailed, and the vehicles involved would be under a lot of investigation. Then people are comfortable. The only time there'll be noise is if a prominent person dies in any of those accidents. Now we start making noise and whatnot. Why? Because there are no what you call numerical markers. They have to be there. A system that sort of tunasema numbers run the world. The world runs on numbers. So as long as there are no numbers, as long as there are no numbers, we have a problem. That is why a place like was it Haile Selassie Avenue? No, it was Landis Road. On Landis Road, it was Landis Road or Haile Selassie Avenue, one of them. A matatu actually overturned, kichwa chini mguu juu. I've passed through those places a number of times. How are you operating that vehicle to a point it upturns to such a level? Haile Selassie Avenue, gari lipinduka vipi paka kichwa it went upside down, wheels up, the roof is down. How? That means there are no metrics. We are normally told town speed is 50 kilometers per hour. Simama hapo Lang'ata Road, jione vituko. So now that is just speed, and it's not being adhered to. And I remember we together with some friends of mine visited one of the parastatals that are involved. They listened to us, and then they just listened and story. And my thinking is that they will jump on this thing very quickly, but unfortunately nothing happened. So those cases whereby there's aspect of numbers and speed, nothing is going on. And the rest of the constitution, sana to do with the lives in terms of food security. How many people are getting? In fact, 100% of the nation should be getting a 3 well-balanced meal per day. That one should be there. In God we trust, all others bring that. Interesting.
Exactly. In God we trust, all others bring data. I mean, it's just really in support of what you're saying, that in everything else, the world runs in numbers. But this one thing called politics seems to be the one that has completely eluded us in terms of being able to measure the people we so-called our leaders. And I don't know if all politicians really qualify to that term that we call leaders. Are they really leaders, or is just they have just been given a certain title, hold a certain office, and automatically they are said to be leaders? So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if there are models that exist. Maybe the models we are seeing in places like the UAE, and some people might say they are oppressive in some degree. But this is where we need to question, what is freedom? Is freedom being able to live in a city ridden by crime? Where I was just talking to someone actually from where was this? She lives in SA, in some town in one of their southern cities, and she was saying, leaving a house after a certain time of the day, after evening, becomes a very tricky affair. And we all have all these things. I mean, in some parts of Nairobi, you can't afford to drive there at night, or even walk at night because of crime. So is that really freedom? Or is the freedom having that ability that, you can walk anywhere, anytime, with no care in the world? The level of trust is so high. We were just talking with someone that the other day he was dropped by a taxi and he didn't have the local currency. So he just went in, he was to meet up with us, so that we give him the local Rwanda francs. And the driver was supposed to follow him up, but the driver didn't even come immediately. But just because the driver was told, I'll come and pay you, he has that trust that this person will live up to his word. Here in Rwanda, sometimes I pay on the mobile money. And like I could be in a restaurant, I pay, and they will not even follow up with me to confirm if I've really paid. I could easily walk. And it's because there's such a high level of trust here that they know that if you've said yes, you pay via Momo, I don't have to follow you up to confirm you've paid. I know you will. They know that that level of small little theft doesn't exist. People really trust one another. So this, I guess, these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves in terms of if you are to really craft a functional, peaceful, highly functional, country. What does that mean? And how do you craft that to ensure you have a good functioning police, good functioning systems, and all that? Anyway, those are some of the things I'm looking forward to see if these people really follow through on that Occupy Parliament thing that they have set to do for Tuesday.
Where are they going to occupy?
I think so. The idea is just to be there. They'll be on that grounds, and I guess the police will be mobilized probably to protect. I don't know if the president probably will not be there, but maybe the police will protect those grounds, allow only the MPs to stream in. But they're saying they'll be there from 12.
And when
Occupied. So they'll probably sit around the road or something. And I plan to be in Nairobi on Tuesday to sort out my passport. Hopefully they won't disrupt.
You are going to Huduma Center
Immigration.
or
Immigration.
at the Nyayo House?
Yes. Nyayo House.
Well, does the system allow the people to sort of make any move in terms of feedback?
What do you mean? Our system?
Yes. As
See,
long as there's no provision for you and me to air something, then to rally, then we sort of log in somewhere and the feedback ends up to leadership and the decision is made. It's difficult.
You've heard of
it comes to things like there are some places, some positions you cannot occupy without certificate of good conduct. Now, things like good conduct, is it necessary when you're vying for these positions? And then the acquisition of the good conduct system, the good conduct certificate, is it straight? Can it be printed from nowhere? So we're in a situation, it looks like a no-win situation because there are no backup. Like in any company, there's always feedback. Like there's what you call the quarterly feedback. Then there's what you call emergency feedback, like drastic, like something crazy has happened. And so your superiors have to say, hey, we need an urgent meeting. We discuss A, B, C, D. So like when you talk of things like the landslide in Maimayo, and we've been having a series of, I think there are parts of Central and Rift Valley that have been very notorious for landslides. And it so happens there's this Asian country where they have landslide protection nets. They're very huge. It's a physical net that they anchor. Yeah, they anchor. I think they sort of anchor it from the top, and then it brings down in case of anything. It sort of prevents the landslide. So somebody should ask people,
interesting.
How come? What measures have you taken to prevent this thing from happening? Have you done anything? So okay, I've found one here. Let me just
share it with me. I didn't know there was some kind of. This is the power of human mind.
They have existed for over 2 decades now, because I used to see them when I was I think in high school is when I first came across this thing. I've just sent you. Sorry, I sent it to Sharif Mustafa instead. Sorry. I just sent you a copy
The
right
last
now.
person you know.
I've sent you a copy. Sending you another one. So if you do a simple Google search on how to prevent something, you'll end up with something you can try. So this is, here we go. I've sent you a second. Yeah, I've sent you 2 images. I don't know if you've received it. You've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, you can just share it here.
So explain as I begin sharing.
It's like an anchor.
How does it
It's like
work?
an anchor.
It
Whereby now,
holds the
yes,
land.
you see, the landslide is due to loose soil, correct?
Yes.
So it simply prevents the loose terrain
Ah,
from going downwards. So since it's netted and maybe the loose terrain is
I
due to
see.
the force of water, the water will pass through,
I see.
but the dirt will remain there. This is not new technology. This technology has existed for over 20 years, even 30. So these are the questions people should be asking. Uko uongozini, what are you doing? So landslides zimetokea like this number of times in the last 5 years. So yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I
it.
think we got lost. I dropped
Yeah, kidogo
briefly or
you.
something.
So that's it.
Am I back?
You're back. Can hear you.
Okay, great.
So that's a landslide prevention netting. So you can specify it concerning based on the severity of your gradient and whatnot.
Yes.
So, and then this is not new tech. This is over 20-year-old tech.
It's interesting to think. I mean, the human mind, almost as we always say in tech, when somebody asks, is this possible?
Yeah, yes,
My response is always, nothing is
galvanized
impossible.
X mesh netting. Yeah. Thank you, Mustafa.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
why is this thing expensive? Is it like $1 million thing? It's just a bit of engineering, some calculations
Exactly.
based on the gradient and the expected how hard it rains in this area.
The weight.
Ah, and the gradient and the severity of the rainfall, severity of gradient, severity of the rainfall. The steeper the gradient, the more hardcore your netting should be, the higher the level of anchoring and whatnot. In that now, even if it may not be 100% perfect, it will give people an opportunity to evacuate the area
Exactly.
in time.
And even if there are any fatalities, God forbid,
Hmm.
I'm sure it will minimize. And that's the
Minimize
whole
a
idea
lot.
of some of these things. Minimize, help people take action.
Hmm.
In the event now it becomes much more severe and it can't handle that onslaught.
Of course,
Um,
in this day and age, we would have the system set up with sensors, tension sensors, that will tell you the tension level of the netting. If you are at green, you're okay. If you are at yellow, start evacuating and you monitor and see what happens. You should also have reinforcement, what to call real-time reinforcement. As the rain proceeds, there's a way you can maybe add something, reinforce something to come in. And these are things that should be discussed at leadership level, not here. Two mad people rambling. So if it is not being discussed at those high levels, what are these people talking? Especially those areas where they are prone to landslides. What happens?
we've
Those
heard of those Kano floods that happen somewhere in Western Kenya, and it's a year in year out thing. It's expected. It's bound to happen, but we do nothing. It's like we never learn from our mistakes. The
so
idea is, yes, something can happen, but if it gets repeated, then
no,
there's
that is your
something
fault.
wrong.
Like this thing I read somewhere and I posted it in my Twitter timeline. They say somebody visited Japan,
Mhm.
somebody from Africa, and he was very impressed. Then he said, "You Japanese must be very sharp people." So no, you're not sharp. In fact, you in Africa are sharper than us. Sema, how? Sema, here on average we have 1 out of 10 people who are very sharp. So the 10 people congregate behind the one guy and he leads them. In your place, we have 9 out of 10 people who are very
That are
sharp.
smart.
But the dumb guy is the one who now sort of ends up in a position of influence and tends to just make everyone look stupid.
And you know, you're right. What you've just said is so correct that it's not that they have smart people or many smart people. I think one is they're just diligent and disciplined because you know I told you the new place I'm working is just getting to understand how these people like working with policies and processes. They know if this thing has happened before, why don't we create a system towards it so that next time when we do it much better. And then I'm seeing also a very heavy adherence to time. Time. And it can be the simplest of things, but you just see that the effort put into thinking about every single detail of that event or effort or initiative, whatever it might be, and just going through almost minute by minute, blow by blow. If this is going to happen, what does it mean? How do we ensure we, protect and, all these things? So as you say, it's not really born out of just being smart. It's just being born out of being disciplined and diligent and detail oriented and not taking anything for granted. That's it. And I think if we have that mindset, and I think that's what the Japanese and many of these Asian countries are very good at. That's why you even find, one, their level of productivity is higher. Two, they're just, people might call them mechanical. But I think as human beings, there are many things we need to be mechanical. You're waking up and doing something. Many of the things that we do day to day, they are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But we want to think of 1, 3, 7, 8, 9, and forget the in-betweens that make
Total
all the
disorder.
difference if we follow them very well. Yes, exactly. So it's just being diligent. And I think even now, as I think of my own life, if you are careful about those little details, because if you think of even your life, much of your life is routine. Much of your life is routine. It's just the in-betweens where you now have to think certain things more creatively, and you need to plan for those. That helps you now to either think out of the box, help you think of something innovative, help you think of a new approach, help you, be more creative. So that's it. I think that's where we lack. I mean, you've heard of concept like what? I think the Ikigai process, which is Japanese. What's the other one? Japanese have come up with all these things. Many of them are just them being I think I'll summarize it.
There's certain terminology. I forget about it. I forget it. It's used by Japanese train operators. Their system is the guy sitting operating the train. Each time he sees something that is worth noting, they
Yes.
normally raise their hand, point,
Uh-huh.
and make a certain mental note. Because when you make a certain physical move, it clicks well with your mental notation. It looks funny. You see something, you call it out, then you point it with your hand. So it
Mhm.
does well in terms of attitude and what you call reinforcement of a mental notation. So they have these things, and they are not complicated. They are things which assist you to be in order. In fact,
Actually,
most.
what I was actually referring to is Kaizen,
Mm,
continuous improvement. And actually, it was actually a good friend of mine who I think he told me he once spent time in Japan, and he told me it is the simplest of things. So, like one thing he would say, he noticed that when they leave the boardroom, they make sure they leave things exactly the way they are. Where they place the
World Cup.
markers, the markers are left at the place where they were. Everything is such that the next person coming to use the boardroom will not spend 2 or 3, 5 minutes looking for the duster, the marker pens, trying to turn on or something, or reorganize the projector. It's that continuous. And then, as you say, when they find an anomaly, they're supposed to note it. So that anomaly is what now should help them do that continuous improvement. Also, they realize, oh, okay, every time we come into the boardroom, there's some 2, 3 minutes spent trying to reframe the projection, put the frame in and correct, make sure that the projector is not going out of frame, things like that. So that means, okay, we want to make sure we put the projector to be stationary anytime. It should just be plug and play, and boom, somebody is able to project. So it can be that. The next one can be, oh, every time we come in, there's this or that. There's this or that. So now you worked on the markers and the dusters such that they're not being misplaced, but every time when somebody leaves the room, they return them to where they were. They improved on the projection. The other could be whatever else, such that if you come there after a year, any anomaly that was noted, they took that seriously and implemented a system or a process around it such that it doesn't repeat itself again.
But that is should be normal human behavior. Something elementary as even after you are done with the boardroom, return the seat to its position. It looks a bit, it may seem petty, but I tend to have problems the few times whenever I need to sit to go into a boardroom. Then I find the seats zimekaa kombo kombo. I'm like, I'll even go and try to arrange the seat which I'm not going to sit because it really sort of eats into my mind. Vitiligo seats are like who was here? So it's all about creating a conducive environment for your operation, and the human mind works with order. But I think we're at a point where some people are so accustomed to disorder that is like you can pass a certain street in Nairobi and it's crazy. And people are just at peace. I'm like, I'm one even up on papers strewn all over. Then when it rains, it becomes another crazy nightmare. And you're like, leave alone the rain which caused the flooding. This rain that causes dirt, not even dirt, not filth. And people are just walking and there's no outcry over the conditions. And I think the system that we have has actually worked to its stipulation because in the system we have tailor-made to psychologically beat you down and accept that this is who we are. And majority are really beaten down such that when you try to raise some issues, somebody looks at you funny. Someone tell you, we jipe shughuli bwana, jipe shughuli. So that is who we are, but small changes. I don't know if you are in your own region, you can do what you can to make some change, but it's a very long shot. So this was a very funny week for me. It was a week of personal embarrassments because the phone that I had finally broke down, and me I only replace phones when they are. When you see me imekwisha kabisa is when I make a move to replace it. It had issues with charging, and it was a phone that I'm made to understand the dealers and they don't even deal with it. I ask them, and they say you don't have TVs, fridges, whatnot, but that phone we don't deal with it. So it was time to buy a new one. And remember, I had stayed for 4 years without buying a phone. So, courtesy of Makena Mwita and Electra Hub, I acquired one very nice piece of
Oh,
equipment.
nice.
So, the drama started at home. The
So
drama,
big shout out to Makena Mwita
yes,
and
Makena
Alexa.
Mwita
Seems to be
and Electra
making some good headways. Eh?
sold me some.
Did he sponsor you or you bought it?
I bought it. I bought it. I bought it.
Oh, okay.
I
But
even
promoting a
I
brother
sent
in
him.
this business.
I DM'd in a screenshot of my M-Pesa transaction, so that it's not just another Mtupu affair. So now that is the honeymoon has ended. Now the embarrassment begins. I'm made to understand that phones nowadays you can't open the battery. I knew that, but
Mhm.
I was thinking you can open the back cover, but you cannot remove the battery. So here I am. I'm now castigating my behavior of chewing nails. I'm trying to pry this phone open. I go to YouTube. I'm not getting news. I look for if like some slightly sharp object that I can pry it open. Nothing can happen. So something told me, hey chief, unaweza cause damage. Nenda wapi? Nenda kwa fundi. So I was telling fundi, hii kitu imekwama ifunguki nyuma. The fundi was looking at me like just coming from Shamahoho using Msamaria Mwema. He pulled something like a plate from the side of the phone. Told me, wake a SIM card. I'm not used to that in my hands and I'm like, what the fuck is this? But even the way in echo. So I put it there, slot it in, turn the card. Now I'm very happy.
Which one did you have before?
It was a Hisense H40 Lite, the one that you can just unafungua nyuma tu unaweka SIM card zako na unarudisha, no big deal. So the
Yeah,
guy
hiyo
slots,
maybe iko kwa Nokia. Nokia maybe they still have that thing. You have to open the bag. But
so
now it has become it's the iPhone approach. You always have the plate.
so I slot it in, I get home. Now another drama occurs. Second drama, charging the phone. Hii ni ile kitu mnasifu, si type C, sijui type whatever. I'm used to the normal kawaida charging where you just slot inaanza kucharge. So I slot nothing. I change the charge head, I change the plug. I'm about to call Makena on Twitter and tell him what a useless character he is. Ambia umeniuzia mkebe. So I get in touch with my brother. He's more tech savvy than me. So I told him, hey chief, hii simu I charge. He started laughing. Ambia, Steve, this is a type C charger. You don't just slot. You slot, then you push it further. You'll hear a very slight clicking sound. Not a, you just feel like you are pushing against some resistance. Yes, it's like kack. So I do kack. Ndio hiyo inafanya. Very good. Now that's slotted. That is slotting. Next order of business, putting in the plug now kwa hiyo socket. So kwa box naona the plug looks very narrow. So I'm trying to fit nikatafuta ile adjustable ile ambayo inakuanga na rounds, na ikasema kwani wameniuzia simu that is based on American plugging system ama what's going on. Again I call my brother, oya, hii plug mbona inakaa ndogo hivi? The guy starts laughing. We're supposed to extend, this is the shape, then the other part
Expand.
una expand. I do it in other way. I'm like, hey, leo ni siku ya ushamba. I was like,
It seems like you needed a class on smartphones, the new generation.
4 years without buying a phone. That's what happened.
Oh, wow.
Then finally, I noticed the phone, the proximity sensor was not working. Then I realized the people at McKenna's place, they had, that glass protector, screen protector. They had sort of placed the edge right on the proximity sensor. So hata ukiongea na simu, the screen doesn't go. No, that was a small issue. I go to the fundi akachukua tu hiyo screen, just adjusted it vizuri, and the phone is okay. So I think we've gone past the gremlins. I now have a phone, but it was a comedy, and I'm glad it was happening.
Which one
nikiwa
is
peke
this?
yangu.
You said the new one you got was what? The first, the
Infinix-
earlier one you said was Hisense. This one is
Hisense,
Infinix.
Hisense H40 Lite, very good
Hisense
phone.
is what? Hisense is. Oh yeah, I didn't know they make phones. Hisense makes home appliances, is it?
Yes,
Like
I had
fridges
a
and
phone.
TVs.
The only thing that made me buy a new phone because that Hisense, it needed an end plate, the one that holds the charging port, the microphone, and whatnot. Because most of the time I had to use earphones because the microphone was there, was not picking properly. In that, if I had acquired an end plate, I would not be buying a new phone because it had run for 4 years trouble free. So we had to make the changes. So I ended up paying a very heavy price for not purchasing a phone for 4 years. So hopefully, I hope this one lasts another 4 years so that I get to embarrass myself again. And it reminds me of someone who purchased, I think it was, I think in 2010 or 2012, 2013 is when they brought in these cars. Doesn't have a handbrake, it has a foot brake where you
Yes,
it's on the left side. So
just on the foot. Yeah.
he acquires the vehicle, he's looking for the handbrake, is not there. So I assume maybe it has an automatic system that releases the handbrake. So the guy is driving and the vehicle is slow, it's dragging maximum 10 kilometers or 15. The vehicle is not
It was already
moving.
in handbrake.
So he bumps into this Kinudia who realizes that food has brought itself. The worst thing, the best thing a mechanic can the best situation for a mechanic is a client who doesn't know what's happening with the vehicle. So he tells the mechanic, hii gari haisongi bwana, sijui na nini.
Haina
So
power.
haina power. So mechanic immediately notices that exclamation mark for the
Yes.
handbrake is on,
Yeah.
and he sees there's a foot brake that is depressed in, and he knows, gentlemen, leo ni kukula sausage na nyama ya kuchoma. I'm not
Exactly.
eating sukuma wiki today. So the guys immediately rushes, hii na kusort, rushes into the store, comes up with a very huge toolbox of spanners and bolts and whatnot. He goes under the vehicle, does his things, walks in, drive in, out, chini ya gari akitoka, sweating very hard. Asema hii nitahakikisha umetoka hapa na gari. Hii silali. So the guy, I don't know where he's getting the sweat from. The guy is now sweating to a point where the customer is concerned. Utaweza kweli? Ndio nang'ang'ana. So he finally says, sasa una hii ya kufinya chini, nimeadjust. Nimefanya some bit of improvisation. Tumeimprovise. Hii gari ni kama alisahau kuwekea ile handbrake. Sasa nimekusaitia hii, hebu jaribu. So the guy steps on. Nimefanya. Hii umeniokoa bwana. So shika hii 2000 shillings. Guy is very happy. You spend 2000 shillings on somebody pressing a foot brake for you. So when he goes and is explaining his success and how he went through shit and somebody rescued him. Somebody asked him,
Yes.
shida ilikuwa wapi? Ati hiyo gari ni kama ilikuja ile function ya handbrake haikuweko. Really? Hebu tuonyeshe. Like, ndugu yangu, hii ni foot brake. You're supposed to step on it to depress it ndio anze kudrive. Umekula pesa ngapi? 2,000. Welcome to
Iwe funzo kwako na wengine.
iwe funzo kwako na wengine. And the guy
Somebody will
said
not
this,
take
and the
advantage
guy
of
was
you.
nearly defending. Hapana bwana, this guy was sweating with spanners and screwdrivers.
Yeah, of course, it needs to show it took a while to justify what and all that time it was just delayed.
It's like a magic show. Sijui ni mara kidogo a rabbit has been pulled out of the hat, sijui nini, there's a dove flying out of the glove. Ni kiini macho tu. So the sweating was part of the props. They're called props. The sweating was a prop. So at least that 2000 atalipa deni. Bibi kama ni saloon, bibi kupeleka saloon, umesaidia mtu, but you've learned. Consider it paying school fees for being a mono. So that's technology. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
crazy. In fact,
Yeah.
there's some guy who paid 5,000 shillings for 2 liters of petrol. He didn't know the vehicle has run out of petrol. Alipa 5,000 for 2 liters of petrol.
Being ignorant, as they say also in law, ignorance is not defense.
Yes.
Being ignorant is not a good thing.
They normally say, if you know,
And
you
somebody
know,
can
and
always
also if
take
you do not
advantage.
know, you don't know.
Mm.
So, about 1 hour of unrehearsed free flow Saturday.
What?
That
And now it's over? It's almost
56
yeah.
minutes.
56, yeah, we're almost there. So yeah, so big shout out to Sharif Mustafa, and so we had a new guy here.
You're a new guy, Innocent Sunday.
Innocent
Tunasema asante
Sunday.
sana for being with us here. Reporting live from Athi River, and my colleague from Rwanda, Kigali. Can you say adios? You can say
See ya.
adios.